Today I want to highlight the 7 best and worst carry guns that you can buy on a budget. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I've set this budget. What I wanted it to be was under 400 bucks. Unfortunately, some of these crept up a little bit more than what I would like. So all of these can be had for under 500 bucks. And let me go ahead and say, I can't tell you where to go buy guns. Okay, that's YouTube's rules, not mine. All right. Regardless, these things can be found. Okay. And so I'm just going to give you a general idea. Things always change and everybody's budget is different, but I wanted to keep this as low as possible and not get down to like high point, budget, but, keep it reasonable. All right. And so the whole idea of this video is to inform you, right? To tell you my experience with these carry guns, which ones have done really well for me and which ones not so much. Let's go ahead and get into it. We essentially have 4 really good options and 3 I would not recommend at all. The first one here, the Mossberg MC2SC. You have front and rear slide serrations on the Mossberg here. It is optics ready. It's got a decent set of sights there. You can see the white dots in the rear, white dot in the front. You got a loaded viewport right there so you can see your brass down in the chamber. It's actually got a really nice stippling up here, so your support hand has somewhere to kind of index right there, and so that's pretty good. Overall, the gun feels really good in the hand too, and so this grip texturing, although it doesn't wrap all the way around, it's aggressive enough to keep that gun locked into your hand. And so you have an 11 round mag and a 14 round mag that's around here somewhere. You have a cross bolt style safety. Now the one thing about this gun is you can get it with or without a safety, which is fine. If people want a safety, that's all well and good. The location of the safety though is one of the worst I've ever seen on a handgun. Traditionally you'll have them up here, the smaller the better, just my opinion, okay? But having this cross bolt very close to the magazine release could cause some issues, especially in some kind of stressful situation. I really hate the decision they went with. If you're going to put a safety on it, put it in a location that makes sense. This to me does not make sense. It's got an okay trigger. And so this is one of those guns, you hit the wall. It's got an overstop travel in the back there. You hit the wall. Oh, I got the safety on. Hold on. By the way, like I said, you can get them without the safety, so you don't have to go with that safety. It's just a dumb idea, a dumb decision where they put it. You hit the wall. It's flat face too, by the way. And it eventually breaks. Just keeps creeping. Reset right there. Okay. Not a great trigger at all. It's just okay at best. And so the reason I put this on one of the worst carry guns is it is wildly inconsistent. And I've spent a lot of time shooting carry guns, man. If you're not familiar with me, you can go back, you can take a look at my channel, man. But I can shoot these guns fairly well, and I can shoot a lot of different guns really well. This one right here, man, I had a 10-inch plate at 10 yards. I can hit that target all day long. This one, it really surprised me how poorly I shot with this gun. Hitting low. Oh, wow. Yeah, likes a 12 o'clock hold for sure. Okay. It's good to know. I prefer a 6 o'clock hold, but it is what it is. Those shots are hitting low. Okay, we got an out of battery there. We are well within 100 rounds. Okay. All right, so there are some guns that I pick up and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on it. There's others that it takes time and it takes a little bit of work. So those are first shots. This is going to be pretty interesting. I need to definitely learn this gun. And so, of course, this is just my experience, but at the same time, this is not a gun I would recommend. I had some out of battery issues, one of which I think was my fault. I think I limp wristed it because I did a shot and then I did another shot, and that shot right behind it actually surprised me a little bit. And so when that happened, I think I limp wristed the gun, slightly out of battery. I think is the issue. Okay. You know, typically from what I've seen, if you have a limp wristing issue, you're going to have a failure to feed or maybe an extraction issue. But I had a few of those out of battery experiences. Something's going on with the gun. Now, I will say that most of that stuff happened within 100 rounds. So more testing needs to be done. But at this point, even though it's at a great price point, this is not a gun I would recommend. If you want to stay around that price point, though, one of the best ones that I've done this year, the IWI Masada S. You got front and rear slide serrations. It is optics ready. One thing I like, you don't have a rail on this gun, but they did take that serration, that design all the way down to the frame there. So that's pretty cool. You got blacked out tritium sights there in the rear and then a white dot in the front. So pretty good contrast there. Comes with two 12-round mags. The magazine release, you can see it follows the lines of the pistol right there, and then it flattens out, so it's in a really good spot. Hit that magazine, they pop right out of the gun. And although the grip texturing is subtle, it still almost has like a full-size grip, man, even with the flush magazines. And so they did a really good job. Nice undercut there, so you can get your hand high up on the pistol. The trigger is pretty good, man. You got that blade in the middle, flat face, of course. You hit the wall, little bit of creep there, and it breaks. Really good trigger. Reset. Not a whole lot of guesswork. Fairly consistent. And again, for under 400 bucks, the Masada S has been a little banger for sure. Let's talk about one of the guns I hate the most. The KelTec P15. You know, I bought this gun because I said, hey, KelTec, it looks like they've done a pretty decent job from their old PT series. Let's see what they have to offer now. And so you have fairly aggressive serrations here in the front and especially in the rear there. All right, so that's pretty nice. You got a little bit longer barrel there too, so it gives you a little better velocity. Fiber optic sights with that tritium insert and that white outline around that fiber optic there. So that's the sights I have no problem with. They're kind of low profile, but they do a decent job. Magazine release is tucked into the frame a little bit. I'm not a fan of the positioning, nor am I a fan of the fact that those mags, once you position your hand like that, they tend to hit the fatty part. And that's just the way they've designed this right here, right? The back of the magazine there kind of hits the fatty part of your hand. And so manufacturers can get around that. They didn't, and that's what you're left with, okay? But regardless, you do have a rail slot right there. So if you want to put a light or a laser, you can do that. And it is optics ready. And most of these guns are, okay? Loaded chamber indicator right there. For some reason, they put a grip safety on here. They don't have a safety on the trigger itself. Of course, there's internal safeties, but, that little grip safety, to me, I just hate them. They also have a hook design in the trigger. And so this is kind of an old school way of thinking where flat face triggers are the way, right? That's the way most manufacturers are going. They decided against that. And so a flat face trigger coupled with a decent pull and a predictable pull, even with these smaller guns, man, can really make you shine at the range. And more importantly than that, gives you confidence in your carry gun. This one, man, the trigger, the super aggressive texturing on these little squares right here, unnecessarily aggressive. But with as light as this thing is too, this is probably the lightest carry gun that I'm showing here today, you almost have to have that aggressive texturing because this thing wants to fly out of your hand every time you shoot it. Way too much muzzle rise, and I understand what they were trying to do. KelTec has always done that with their smaller carry guns. They make them super light, super concealable, really comfortable. But again, if you have a gun that you cannot consistently hit a target and feel confident in it, I'll take a little bit more weight all day long and have a gun that I feel confident when I pull that thing out of the holster, I'm going to be on target, and this is not a gun I would recommend simply because of that. But on the flip side, we have a gun like the Taurus GX4. Now there is an XL version now, and I plan on getting one of those, by the way, but for well under 300 bucks, this has been probably one of the best carry guns for anybody on a budget, on a really low budget. Under 300 bucks, like I said, they did this thing right, man. Front and rear slide serrations, they're fairly subtle, but I've never really had a problem charging the gun up. You have 2 magazines with the gun. Both of them are 11 rounds, so that's pretty good. Magazine release right there, small, easy to get to. Magazines pop right out of the gun. Again, keep in mind what I mentioned there. This back strap is just one piece, and so none of the magazine actually touches your hand, and that enables those things to fly out. And so that's what I want, man. If I need to do a mag swap, I want those magazines out of there, and that's what this provides. Now again, the new ones, they're optics ready and all that. This one is not. You got a blacked out sight there with the white front dot. Sighting setup is not the greatest on this gun. Of course, that can be changed. Aggressive grip texturing here and here for your support hand on both sides there, of course. Reversible magazine release. And when it comes to a smaller carry gun, check this thing out, dude. It is a banger. They've done a really good job. As far as I can remember, no issues with this thing the entire time I've had it. And, you can tell from the finish that it is on the cheaper side, but I feel like pretty much everything they've done with this gun, they did it right. And Taurus has been impressing me with their striker fire guns, dude. And, they've had a bad rap for a lot of years. It seems like they're starting to turn that tide a little bit, and the Taurus GX4 is one of those guns, man. If you're on a budget, I will recommend this gun almost every single time. Now, here's one that I don't know that I would recommend to everyone, but it still seems like a pretty decent option. This is the Stoeger STR9MC, micro compact, okay? And I bought this one because it intrigued me. It's got some pretty decent features here. Let's talk about that, and then I'll tell you about my range experience. You got a 1-slot rail here. You have serrations front and rear. These are some of the weakest serrations I've ever seen on almost any gun. They are not cut deeply into the slide, and I talk about this because these micro guns, they're hard enough to charge up, and when you don't have a really positive serrations, these actually tend to slip. Your fingers will actually slip on these things, so they're really not cut that well. You do have a loaded viewport, so you can see your brass down in the chamber. You have a rear adjustable sight. You don't see this on very many small guns like this at all. Blacked out serrated in the rear, and then that white dot in the front. So the sighting system is okay. The grip texturing is aggressive, and for a smaller gun like this, that's a good thing. 111 and 113 round magazine right there. The sizing on it is actually pretty good. Takes down similar to a Glock. You got a little bit of stippling right there for your support hand. And again, all that stuff is really important, especially grip texturing and all that, because the smaller the gun you go, the more you want to have a hold of, and they do a good job of that. The magazine release is decent, but again, you'll notice that at least on the extended mag here, part of that back strap is the magazine, and so that tends to kind of hang up on the fatty part of your hand. There's the flush magazine, and that one again catches up a little bit. It just doesn't fly out of there the way that I like to see that, okay? So just kind of one of those things, all right? All in all, it's got some pretty decent features, and when we shot this at the range, I was like, man, this thing likes a real 6 o'clock hold. And so I went to adjust this. I adjusted this sight 3 ways from Sunday. I mean, I adjusted it every possible way I could, and I still could not get this thing to lower the point of impact. Just couldn't do it. I did notice that this rear sight is a little bit loose too, and then I tried to adjust it, but that's your windage adjustment. Then I tried the elevation adjustment, and I just could not get this thing to print any lower. What I do like is that it's consistent. And so They have multiple sighting options for these things. They do have an optics ready version. I think that's what I would go with again if I were to buy this particular gun again. I'm just not super confident in those sights, but I like a lot of what they've done here, and I do appreciate that it is consistent. It just hits fairly high, and like I said, I could not get those sights to adjust, and so I got a full review coming on this thing. But all in all, for the price point, I think it's a pretty decent option. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. It's something I did want to bring to the table though, because I think all in all, it's okay. All right, we're getting down to the wire here. One that I would never recommend, and this kind of brought the price up a little bit too, is the CSX from Smith & Wesson. I don't like this gun at all. You got front and rear side serrations, which are kind of like those competitor serrations, which are better, in my opinion, than the fish scale style serration. Decent set of sights, white dots in the rear, white in the front, loaded viewport serrated on the top to help with glare. Magazine release is right there, and again, those magazines don't pop out of the gun. Now, what I don't understand is that they used to use this sleeve on their older Shield models, and it was just such a pain because, you know, it would ride up like that, and then you have the concern if you go to, you know, do a mag swap with that, you know, would it seat all the way in the gun? Would it not? Who knows? And they fixed this with the new Shields, and then they went back to it. Now, I will say that this slides a little bit easier than the old ones did. Still, I'm not a fan of it. You do have 12 rounds in the mag, and for a 1911 style gun, that's pretty freaking good, especially when you compare it to a SIG 938 or something. Of course, you have that safety, so you would carry this cocked and locked. But one of the biggest detriments of this pistol is the trigger. And I just don't understand, because, you know, a single action trigger, man, you would think this thing is on point. This one is not. So you have that little blade right there in the middle of the trigger, right? It's going to force you to pull right in the middle. You hit the wall, and it just stacks for days, and then it breaks. The reset is not there. You hear that? It's there. Pretty much all the way out. Then it breaks again. It's heavy. The reset sucks. And I just, like I said, man, if they would have went with any other trigger almost, this may be a different conversation. It is a smaller gun. It's fairly light too. I don't necessarily have a problem with the recoil impulse. You don't get a rail or anything like that, but on a 1911 style carry gun, this is not one that I would recommend at all. On the flip side, a Smith & Wesson I would recommend, and I have recommended a lot, is the M&P Shield Plus. This has been the best carry gun that I've had, second to none. I mean, it really is that good. Front and rear side serrations, they are the fish scale style serrations. They do a decent enough job, okay? You have white dots in the rear, white dot in the front. You can get them optics ready, of course. What I'm carrying now is actually the Performance Center of the Shield Plus. These are a little bit more expensive. That's why I didn't include it in this video, but the original Shield Plus, man, I've carried this thing for a long time. And it's, when it comes to a gun that is a smaller, micro 9, super thin and concealable, but one hell of a shooter, the Shield Plus comes to mind. And one of the things they were able to do here is improve the trigger dramatically. So you, of course, have a flat face trigger, hit the wall, boom. They left out the guesswork, right? It's very predictable. It's not the lightest trigger, doesn't have to be, but it's predictable. Reset, right there. Overstop travel, right there in the rear. Texturing on the grip is subtle, but it does a good enough job. You get one 10-round mag, one 13-round mag right there. And if that's not enough for you, you actually have a 15-round mag as well to give you a real full-size grip there. When it comes to concealed carry guns that are amongst one of the best and the most confidence-inspiring, the best trigger, and one of the best shooters, the Shield Plus is where it's at. And again, under $400 for the regular Shield Plus, that is a freaking deal. This is the best carry gun that I think I've ever owned. And again, I've switched up recently. So check that video out where I talk about why I switched from the Shield Plus to the Performance Center if you want to. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.